Hello, I am Cody Ellingham, and this is the Transformation of Value podcast. This show is brought to you by Scaur, the first law firm in New Zealand to accept Bitcoin as payment for legal services. Now, many lawyers are not yet well versed in the legal aspects of Bitcoin, and that is why Scaur have decided to provide specialist legal services to digital asset holders and their professional advisors. Scaur are knowledgeable about Bitcoin in New Zealand and can provide advice in areas including estate planning, property and trusts. Scaur offers a 20% discount for services paid in Bitcoin. Find out more at scaurbricks.co.nz/Bitcoin. Now, in today's episode, I talk with James Scaur. He has a great story, first discovering Bitcoin in high school, teaching himself programming and starting a business, before going on to work at both Cryptopia and Easy Crypto, while travelling through Europe and Brazil. He is now launching some exciting projects, including bringing Azteco Bitcoin vouchers to New Zealand and making Bitcoin more accessible in Te Reo Māori. I do hope you enjoy this episode. If you want to get in touch with me, please send an email to hello@thetransformationofvalue.com and I will get back to you. Otherwise, on to the show.
It's definitely the most professional podcast I've ever been on. Last one I was on was what a guy with his like earphones and outside like a beach shack in Brazil.
No, that's all good. I think the way I think of it is like almost like maybe 1.5 fists, because if you get into close, you get the
ASMR effects. Okay, so all right, so maybe I should have it a little bit further away then. But,
no, that's good, and then you just sort of work around it, you know.
Cool. Yeah.
But I guess what I've learnt,
it's kind of like kissing the distance almost.
Yeah, sort of eyeing it up, and if you keep your eye on sort of the other person, because you don't want to be right in here. I mean, you can be. And
but just like a normal conversation. Yeah,
and I think what I've found is there's a lot of dynamic range as well. So people sort of making a lot of noise, and I fix all of that in the edit. So my main goal is that you were relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know you provided a list of talking points. It's very professional of you.
Just choose what you want of that. Like, I'm not keen to cover all of them. I do what's most interesting to you, you know?
I mean, but before we get into that, though, because, I mean, as I said, this is very professional. Usually I'm the one saying, all right, well, this is the talking points, but you've like, all right, here's 12 topics I want to cover. And I thought...
Sure, so, yeah. You go ahead.
But before we do that, though, it was a really good weekend. Thank you for being here in Wellington. We caught up at Kiwi, had another little catch-up yesterday, talking a bit more about sort of the work you're doing and some of your bigger ideas. And it left me impressed. I think, I mean, we'll get into it, but I'm impressed by what you're doing, James. And I like to see that sort of energy in New Zealand, though you won't be here for much longer, will you?
I'm immediately going for 6 weeks in Brazil.
You're not moving permanently?
No. Yeah, in fact, going on the trip there specifically because I'm not moving soon. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, but long term plan to oscillate between New Zealand and Brazil. Yeah.
So you used to live in Brazil?
Yes. Yep. 3 years. Yep.
Yeah. How was that?
It was cool. Yeah, great country, really exciting Bitcoin scene, and just very different to New Zealand, but a really cool country.
What are the big differences for you?
Well, starting with population size, 56 times the amount of people that we have here. Also, huge land size too. You know. Just different dynamics. Latin culture instead of a more, I guess, New Zealand's a mix of Anglo-Saxon and Māori and Asian and so whereas Brazil is more, it's a real melting pot, but you get African, you get Portuguese, you get Italians, Germans, cities like Sao Paulo, where I spent a lot of time, are also just crazy. They're like a country within a city. I think it's something like 5 times the population of New Zealand within the greater Sao Paulo region. So, I don't really know where to start.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I think you actually mentioned a few things about Brazil when we were talking over the weekend, and it stuck with me. I was thinking about it because, I've been going on this journey myself to understand a little bit about what my next journey will be, sort of physically where I go next. And El Salvador is a place that I'm really interested in, obviously Central America, but Brazil, Argentina, different parts of that entire continent are just never a place I was looking at. I was always looking the other way towards China, Asia, Japan, that sort of Asia-Pacific side. But turning my attention towards these other places, you realize there's so much to learn. And the cultural differences, you say, that just the approach to life, the vibrancy, which I can only imagine having not seen it myself, but you've witnessed sort of that approach to life, to love, to just the society as a whole is quite markedly different, right?
Yeah, I think definitely the thing that got me to move to Brazil was that I felt more alive there than any other country I'd visited.
Yeah.
What drove you to Asia? Where did that come from?
I think, this is where it connects to my photography and my artwork that you can see. Really, it was initially an escape. I really needed to get out of New Zealand. And I'm actually going through a similar phase right now where I heard the call, the hero's journey you might be familiar with, and I heard the call, and it was a funny story how I ended up there. I've told people before, but I was back in Hastings, sort of, milling around. I was about 19, and I just was not sure what to do with my life. Hastings is just a bit of a hole. Hawke's Bay, it's this sort of enclave, and I was cleaning office buildings of all things. And I was cleaning this Smith & Smith glass repair on Karamu Road. And one day it was like the zen sound of like the vacuum cleaner on my back. It like hit me. And I got this inspiration, and the voice said, go to Japan. And that changed my entire life. And so I ended up getting my shit together, moved to Wellington, got a degree, got a scholarship with the Dominion Post and a few other things. Ended up on exchange in Japan, ended up getting a job, and ended up spending 5 years there. But that was kind of just being in this space where this voice was able to speak. And I've always remembered that, and I've always taken that with me to like listen to that calling. And I'm looking for it now relating to Bitcoin stuff. Where is that voice telling me to go? What's it sort of, what's the direction? You'll be familiar actually, I believe it's Portuguese. There's a word for a nostalgia for a place you can't return to. Saudade.
Saudade.
Saudade. Is that a common word?
Yeah. Very, very common.
That particular phrase, which I believe maybe came through via, I don't know, it was Portuguese, but I believe it may have came through sort of from sailors who were like longing for the old, the old country. So maybe they'll come over to Brazil and, the new world. Saudade. And they would not be able to return necessarily. And so there was this kind of longing for a place they couldn't return to. And that was always with me when I was traveling. It was like New Zealand was always in my mind and my heart, but it was like a place that I was compelled to leave, but which I was also compelled to return to. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. But.
Yeah, I can kind of relate to it. I think for a long time I found myself quite critical of New Zealand or not really wanting to return. Not super proud to be a Kiwi, but I think definitely over COVID, when it became impossible to return to New Zealand or difficult to with MIQ, I definitely found myself missing home more and feeling the disconnection.
Where is home for you originally?
Originally I was born in Christchurch, but I grew up in the Waikato.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think there's something about Christchurch. Like, which would you say you align with more, like Waikato or Canterbury, or in terms of
probably see myself more as being connected to Christchurch. Yeah, and currently live there.
It's interesting. Like for me, there's this sort of imagery, and this is a bit artistic, but like Canterbury, Christchurch. It's like the most New Zealand place of all because it's just so. They're just the words, the names for places. Like for me, it's quite foreign. I'm from North Island, from Hawke's Bay, but it's like Rolleston, Culverden, Lincoln, some of the road names, some of the regions. Ashburton, Timaru, like these places are just so iconically New Zealand. Like I think of them as like unplaces because there's nothing there almost. Like
Rikaya,
yeah, they're just sort of a couple of houses, a couple of farms.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, Christchurch City is a bit of a metropolis, but as soon as you're out of that, it's just arable land.
Yeah, and you can drive for hours
in a straight line.
Soon. Yep. Yeah.
And there's something I really resonate with that, and you get a little bit of that in Hawke's Bay, but it's like that's New Zealand is just these open landscapes where there's no one else, and that has always stuck with me. And I was talking to someone yesterday from Morocco, and our conversation over the weekend sort of came to my mind because we were just trying to communicate about how New Zealand people approach life, how they approach social relations. You know, it's very difficult, even for someone who's from New Zealand, to move to another city and make friends, I think. Like, Wellington is a little bit different. It's got that melting pot, Auckland to a degree, but certainly Hawke's Bay, certainly Christchurch, you can't just turn up. You really need to like go out and do the club, you know, like join a club or some sort of sports club or something. I mean, has that been your experience?
Yeah, no, I think I definitely had to, living overseas, I feel like I unlearned a lot of like Kiwi ways of relating, you know, especially being kind of understated and like super humble all the time. I think it's sometimes we can come off as superficially friendly, but yeah, a little bit cold or you know, kind of hard nuts to crack.
Yeah, and I've had that. You know, people tell me that Americans are like, wow, you know, American friends are like, man, it's so hard to get to know Kiwis. But I guess for me, it was always, well, that is just normal. You know, you kind of keep to yourself a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like New Zealand's a good place to be if you like isolation. You've got plenty of areas that you can just, you know, bug out and just be away from everyone else. It's a country that's kind of quite well suited to an introvert or a loner.
Yeah, and I mean, I imagine that's probably quite different to experience in Brazil. And you were in Europe before that, right?
Yeah. Southern Italy, Sicily. So yeah, that was a good kind of launching pad for Brazilian culture, which is like Sicilian on steroids.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's very familial. It's very loud and connected, and in the street, and people laugh.
People are very tactile, and
And I think that's been part of, I mean, again, this kind of creative angle on it, but you know, what is New Zealand coming back? You know, I think we're both similar. You know, we've come back and reintegrated to a degree, but it's also like, what is unique and interesting and special about this place and these islands? Because you really realize, you know, these are islands. These southern islands are so far away from the world, politically, economically, and how this relates to Bitcoin, our understanding of paradigm shift. You know, everything takes 10 years to get here. And your experience, which I'll be keen to dive into a little bit, your experience in Sicily and Brazil, and your work with Bitcoin, what's going on in the world and what can we learn from New Zealand? So that's a bit open, but I mean, where do you want to start? What was your Bitcoin journey? How did that all begin?
I suppose it really all began when I was still in high school. 2013, I had a classmate in my school who was kind of in my economics class. He was super smart, but he was always in detention. Like he just did not like kind of really study. Anyway, he was keen to buy Bitcoin and get some, and he knew that I was like, you know, good with computers, technology, so he asked me to figure out how to get some Bitcoin, and yeah, I happily obliged. I figured out how to get spent like, I got $100 off him. I also put in $100 of my own. We sent it to this place. I think it was BitNZ maybe. It was a guy running his own personal bank account. Managed to get some Bitcoin, and then gave him his half, and then just started playing with it. And largely learning how to use Bitcoin was also the same way I learned how to program and start making websites and work on my first business ideas. because Bitcoin allowed me as a teenager to buy things online without having to have a credit card, without adult approval. It allowed me to trade with strangers on Reddit, on the internet. It allowed me to receive payments without having a business or a merchant account. It just opened up this whole world of possibilities to me. And that was my first exposure to Bitcoin, and that kind of set the tone for the rest of my journey with it.
So you picked that up in high school. What did you do after school?
I, in fact, never completed school. I shortly it was a year 2015 or end of 2014. I'd had a crack at like trying to create a couple of business ideas, and the Young Enterprise Scheme. You know it. Yeah. They were piloting for the first time the Yes Connect program, I think it was, which allowed students who had schools that did not offer Yes to be able to participate in it, somewhat remotely. And I was the only person from my school at the time who wanted to do Yes. I luckily had a supportive economics teacher, but they just didn't offer it in my school. So I was, I think, the first person to try in the first year of that Young Enterprise Scheme. Started my first kind of proper business in that year in 2015, and by the end of the year had earned enough money to be able to go on a volunteer exchange with AFS, International Student Exchange, to Denmark for a year. And
what were you doing with that business through the Young Enterprise Scheme?
I was making doing websites, mobile website conversions. Just basically providing cheap website development and e-commerce services.
It is actually a really good program. I was lucky my high school also was part of the Young Enterprise Scheme, and I think back to sort of my favourite, my fond memories of school were both the economics class and Young Enterprise Scheme, enterprise class, and I'm quite thankful we had access to that. Yeah. And I'm probably a little bit older than you, but I was in school just around the sort of on the end or the outcomes of the GFC.
Yep.
And I remember our economics teacher just trying to explain it to us, and in a way, I could see he was teaching the curriculum, but he really instilled some powerful ideas around markets. I don't know if he was an Austrian or not, but he certainly kind of explained it to us sort of beyond just what the books were saying. He was saying, look, the money, you can't print money out of thin air.
Yep.
These kinds of questions, these kinds of ideas, which looking back, I can see that really piqued my interest, and it was probably one of my favorite subjects, along with the creative stuff like design and art, which I did as well. But there's certainly power in learning about that stuff at a young age. And, I remember just supply and demand, tariffs, and how they affect the cost of things by just moving the whole curve up. That was, I think it's good that we offer that in New Zealand schools.
And I think it's a private organization too, maybe doesn't receive government funding, or maybe receives very limited. But those business mentors who volunteered at the time, I'm still good friends with several of the business mentors who helped me. If it wasn't for Young Enterprise, I was doing badly in school. I also didn't have many friends. If it had not been for Young Enterprise Scheme, I don't know where I'd be. It was fundamental to my confidence and the development of my personality, and absolutely, I owe them so much.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So you did that, you built that business up, and then what happened after that?
Yes, I went to Denmark for a year. Middle of, was it level 2? Maybe I just completed level 2. Maybe I wasn't just starting level 3. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I was 17. So headed to Denmark when I was 17. Stayed there for a year. learned Danish.
You speak Danish?
Not anymore. Only a couple words. But it was a really cool experience to be away from New Zealand. It was my first proper time outside New Zealand. Just the chance to be in a different country, a different culture. When I came back, I didn't want to study. I didn't want to complete school. I just wanted to work and get back overseas again. And I happened to get involved at a cryptocurrency exchange, Cryptopia. And then my kind of, from then on, I began working full time in the cryptocurrency space for until late last year. I hadn't had any fiat job at all.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you at somewhere along the line since high school you were teaching yourself programming, computer stuff.
Pretty much from the moment I learned how to use Bitcoin, I started learning how to make websites and program apps and things like that. Yeah.
Nice. And so, and you didn't formally study that, you just sort of self-studied. Yeah. Nice. That's the way.
Yeah, I always I tried a computing class at school. I did poorly at that. I've never really been very good at studying things in theory. Quite a practical learner.
Yeah, doing is the best way, isn't it?
Yeah, on the job. Yeah.
On the job, yeah. I got banned from the computer system at my high school.
One of my first things I built when I started learning how to program was like SSH tunnels that would let me like escape the school firewall and like run like gaming servers and stuff. Yeah. All
right, so you ended up in Cryptopia, which is a bit infamous in New Zealand.
Yeah. I was there when we had I started it as a support employee when we had 200K customers, and stayed while we expanded within the space of I want to say 6 or maybe even 4 months to 2 million. It was crazy, our tail end of 2017, big learning experience. I eventually moved out of KYC and customer support into more technical stuff, working with wallets and block explorers, and it was most definitely a book needs to be written about it one day. It was a crazy experience.
What you say? So it expanded from 200,000 to almost 2 million customers. Did you say?
Mm-hmm.
Was that globally?
Most of the client base was global. A lot of customers in Germany and Russia and China. Yep.
But based out of Christchurch, was it?
Based out of Christchurch, yeah.
Yeah, wow. Interesting. Yeah, no, I would be interested in the Cryptopia book. It was a little bit before my time, but certainly there seems to be some stories there. But that journey, that came to an end, and then what happened after that?
Yeah, so I left before they got hacked or shut down. I'd been wanting for a long time to build a block explorer, a blockchain search engine that would kind of function well and work for customer support queries. And I tried to build it internally at Cryptopia for quite a while, but kind of received a fair bit of pushback. And then eventually I just decided I want to build this. I'm tired of not seeing it. So I decided to, I originally was planning to move to Thailand to team up with this guy I met for a friend of a friend who is also into cryptocurrency. But he ended up deciding to go to Georgia, so I joined him there, the country, nearby Russia and Turkey. So, moved over to Georgia to start this bulk search block explorer, which we did build. Unfortunately, it was not a commercial success.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So you're in Georgia, was that Tbilisi or?
Tbilisi,
yep. Yeah, nice. And that, again, you moving to a new country, did you feel it was similar to the first time when you went over to Denmark, where it was this sort of new culture, new experience?
So I think Denmark's very kind of quite similar to New Zealand, standard of living and way people approach life. But when I was in Denmark, I had the chance to visit Bulgaria with my host family, and that was a quite eye-opening experience for me because it showed me that what I previously considered to be, third world or developing countries were not just kind of backwater with uneducated people or dangerous or anything like that. Like that they had people with a lot of potential, people just like me, people who, if I was in their situations, I would be exactly the same as them. Visiting Bulgaria really opened my eye up to the how interesting developing countries, emerging markets could be. And so, yeah, I was definitely more open to like living in Eastern Europe or somewhere like that. And yeah, that was a pretty crazy experience too. Like actually on my second day in Georgia, I had a guy almost shoot me, and then I made friends with him.
How did he almost shoot you?
So I knocked on the wrong door in our apartment block, which was his door. And marijuana is legal in Georgia, and Georgians smoke a lot of pot. And I think he was just having smoked a lot of pot that day. He was a bit nervous. He also had like some political history in Georgia. I think he had to kind of be in exile for a while, like, or at least like live in the UK for quite a bit. So he was maybe like a little bit paranoid, and yeah, he thought I was kind of someone come to kill him. But yeah, he came out with a pistol. I was walking up the stairs, and yeah, it was a very trippy experience. I just remember being very like kind of calm in the moment, and more calm than I expected. But then eventually, once he heard me speaking English, he was just like, English, come in, like gesturing with his pistol, and he invited me in to meet his dog and have some persimmons and tea with him. And yeah, later became one of my best friends in Georgia. Yeah.
That's a great story. I mean, I think we again, and sorry, there is a fire alarm in the background somewhere, but it's not in our building, thankfully. One of these things you get with living in New Zealand as well, again, being an island, it's like we just don't know what it's like in continental countries.
Yeah.
It's just, because you do get people drift in, and there's just this greater flow of people through countries, and so stuff happens that I think just culturally our approach to things, I mean, there's places in New Zealand that you can go to that there's one road in, one road out.
Yeah.
And I think in Europe in particular, there would be this idea of like, yeah, you don't know who's going to knock on the door.
Yeah. We're so focused on ourselves and the things that happen within New Zealand. Even our media, our news just focuses only on New Zealand politics, New Zealand events. Yeah, quite different to many parts of Europe.
Yeah. Cool. So we're talking about Georgia. How long were you over there for?
I want to say, I think it was less than 8 months in total. Yeah. Georgia give a 1 year tourist visa, I want to say, to anyone who enters. No visa needed. So
you were in Georgia. You were working on a business side there as well. What was that? The blockchain stuff?
Bulk search, block explorer. Yep, TX batch.
TX batch. So that didn't work out. And then what happened?
Well, through the process of trying to get sales for TX batch, I met a lot of people at different cryptocurrency exchanges. Bitfinex, Binance, Bittrex, whatnot else. And also strengthened my connections with Easy Crypto here in New Zealand. In fact, I actually approved Janine Granger, the CEO of Easy Crypto, her original KYC at Cryptopia. Built the product, but failed to sell it. But started picking up contracting work, working for cryptocurrency companies, and also began teaching and using cryptocurrencies in various countries, including Bitcoin. I would say Bitcoin was my key focus during the whole time, but I used to be much more open-minded to other cryptocurrencies and altcoins. I saw them as I thought that I had to have an open mind and give them the benefit of the doubt. I also thought for a while, well, if they've like raised so much money, it must be because they're valuable in some way. But I think like over time I began realizing the unique advantages that Bitcoin has and why it was the only cryptocurrency worth my time and energy.
So, Easy Crypto, when did you start working with them?
Well, I guess I was living in the Netherlands when I first discussed with Alan and Janine about they were keen to expand Easy Crypto to the Netherlands. But yeah, at the time I didn't really have a pathway to doing that with them, but I was quite curious about opening a branch of Easy Crypto in another country. And then, by the time I had been living in Brazil and began getting excited about the potentials for, having a crypto exchange there, the stars sort of aligned, and we made a deal in mid 2019, I want to say, or kind of, sort of virtually did a handshake on doing a franchise of Easy Crypto in Brazil in 2020.
So how does Easy Crypto work? Because they do have a lot of local sites for different countries, but originally it was a New Zealand business.
Yes, yeah. So originally a New Zealand business. Key idea is making it easy to access coins at a reasonable price. Used to be very high premium above spot for NZD to Bitcoin or whatever. And so what Easy Crypto do is they get a good rate. They collect a bunch of people's NZD, do a bulk conversion to USD or something like that, and then get a decent price with the USD to BTC market.
So they buy that USD liquidity and then bring it through, because I imagine there's not much NZD liquidity. There's no mining here, so no one's selling.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay, so you were working with them, talking about that. You were educating people. You went through this journey, sort of understanding, I guess, the Bitcoin proposition, but at the same time, understandably, at that period, there was the emergence of a lot of these altcoins, and I remember that era as well. And looking back on it, certainly there was a promise, there was an idea, a vision. And this hasn't necessarily played out that way. How have your views evolved over time regarding other coins?
Yeah, I think I just whilst I was working at Cryptopia, I was always amazed seeing how these random tokens with just very kind of poorly written white papers would just explode in price. And I believed if there were a lot of people investing in something, that there must be like some kind of sense behind it. There must be a reason for this. I suppose at the time, Bitcoin I don't think had the Bitcoin Cash fork hadn't happened yet. The fees were quite high for Bitcoin, so I was more open to the idea that Bitcoin might be an obsolete technology that was that had high fees, and that there was potentially other innovation that could come along and replace it. But yeah, so I suppose I just stayed. Yeah, I had an open mind to ways things could be better than Bitcoin. But yeah, ultimately, the more I came to learn about different coins, and the more promises I saw broken by ICO projects, the more I began to see the kind of hypocrisy of these different cryptocurrency companies. The more I began to see that like Bitcoin was the main cryptocurrency that people should be paying attention to.
Yeah, I think we were talking about this on the weekend. Mm-hmm. There is a interesting how would you say it? There is an approach right where we stand today in 2023 where I guess you could call it maximalism, that is quite absolute in its approach to Bitcoin. However, if you look back at the history, and I'm reading the Block Size War at the moment, and just sort of understanding kind of what happened, again, because I wasn't paying attention as much back then, I guess. I think there was a period where they didn't have the benefit of the hindsight we have today. And there were certainly promises made. There were questions raised. ultimately the market spoke. There was a consensus was come to around what is Bitcoin, and we now know what that is. But at the time, I think that there were arguments that were, on the surface at least, substantial, and we can only look at it from the perspective of today and make that judgment. But it's an interesting mechanism. It's a market mechanism, and I think what you said, which I thought, or the idea I guess we sort of came to together a little bit, was that a lot of these coins in a way present a test net for Bitcoin ideas or things about not necessarily what's good, but what not to do.
Yep.
And when you look at it that way, it's a little bit more nuanced. Certainly, I think where we're at today, clearly the security token approach is no longer feasible. However, up until now, there's a lot we could learn. All of that scaling issues, we can see how that plays out negatively, and it kind of reinforces the importance of some of the Bitcoin principles and values and protocol level mechanisms that, without some counter example, they perhaps in the future would have come up for debate, or people would have not known exactly what they meant. I don't know. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah. I essentially believe that, everything that is a worthy use of blockchain technology is going to be implemented on Bitcoin. I don't think that any cryptocurrency out there is is better than Bitcoin. You can't have something that's an incremental improvement on Bitcoin to unseat it, to replace it. You need something that is over 10 times better, and that just doesn't exist. Every single coin that has come since Bitcoin has made a set of trade-offs that make it worse in some way. I'm not saying that Bitcoin's perfect, but it is definitely the least bad of all of them.
Yeah, but I think there's definitely nuance, which I appreciate from you, James, like a nuance around these conversations, which if you were to sort of see the talk on Bitcoin Twitter or Nostra around around these topics, it's almost it shuts down creative, almost sort of steel manning type conversations, which I think are important. To actually stay humble, we need to be able to look at what we're doing critically, and not just drink the Kool-Aid. Yeah,
very much so. Yeah, no, and I like to always look for views that conflict with mine. I especially during the bull market, I actively sought out contrarian opinions. I tried to really look into these arguments that, for example, that Bitcoin is bad for the environment or things like that, and I tried to really look for arguments why all this hype around crypto might be false. And of course, right now, while the market is looking pretty down on it, I'm again looking like seeing that that's an overcorrection, and it's that the thesis that makes Bitcoin valuable and secure and strong is still the same.
Yeah, well, we're coming up probably in the next couple of hours. We're hitting 800,000 blocks. I think that's coming up. Today, isn't it? It was about 7.
Yeah, let's mempool.space. Let's check it. Yeah, we are at right now. Can't see the latest block. Oh yes, yeah. Hold up, we just crossed it.
What, the
800k blocks.
What, the last one that just was?
Yes, the last one that just was.
How many minutes ago was that?
It says just now.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so block 8,000 was mined.
800,000.
800,000. Yep, was mined at 2023, June 24 at 15:17 a minute ago.
Wow.
What a coincidence!
Congratulations, man.
Yeah.
Live on air. That's beautiful. That's going to timestamp this episode as well. So
yeah, it will.
That's cool. That's nice.
800k.
Honestly, man, what we were talking about on the weekend really got me thinking. Like, we're talking about different ways to approach this, different ways to be smart about it, and not let dogmatic sort of preconceptions, which I feel like are relatively new to the space. I mean, you've been in here for a while.
I think so. Maybe there's more people attacking or trying to like distract from Bitcoin's purpose, and maybe that so people are kind of coming in and providing a kind of immune system response. But yeah, I don't think that a lot of the maxi rhetoric is helpful to Bitcoin. I think it excludes people. I think it, I myself was into, a lot of what maxis would call shitcoins, right? Like I was interested in them, or I had holdings of them, and
everyone goes through that phase.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think that, I think that the best way to convince someone in that position to learn more about Bitcoin is not by calling them an idiot. It is by recognizing the things that they believe, and then helping them see why those things that they believe are good about cryptocurrency are done best on Bitcoin, or achieved best with Bitcoin.
I think something that maybe we align on a bit, I mean, obviously you've got a technical background as well, but I mean, you're definitely open. I mean, you're learning different languages, into these creative pursuits, traveling, these sort of things. And I certainly feel that Bitcoin is an engineered solution. It's computer code. It's just minimal viable. It works. It does what it needs to do, and it really appeals to a certain engineering mindset. But that mindset maybe fails to recognize that humans are actually not engineers. We're generally speaking illogical, emotional creatures, social animals. And even if there's the logical thing is presented, humans will tend towards the social, the familial, spiritual, before they ever get to a logical level.
Yeah. And you can't reason someone out of an opinion that they didn't reason themselves into. I really believe in that. I also think that that's part of why a lot of these blockchains that have come out that have these super academic kind of foundations behind them that have been meticulously studied and thought over to try to create the perfect blockchain are never going to succeed to the level that Bitcoin does, because they rely on people acting rationally and the world acting in a predictable modeled way. And well, that's the thing. Like, obviously there is an economic reality, as Safedin says, that Bitcoin, it will just continue doing it, as we've just seen, TikTok next block. But it is also that social aspect, which for me, again, coming from the creative side, is very fascinating, because I see the rhetoric and I think, man, this is certainly not helpful. It's not unifying. Yep.
And the argument would be like, well, Bitcoin doesn't care, which may be true, but also like, well, we've had a lot of examples historically of things that are superior from a technical perspective, but they didn't actually work, in terms of social technology.
Yep.
Why is it that we still have countries that are running, their governments with people, like they were in the 16th century, in terms of parliamentary apparatus, and why do we still have knights and dames and sirs and that in this country? Like, what sort of antiquated technology is that? Yet it's got a social function and social value that is almost what maintains it, sort of almost like this sort of Melindy effect. And with money, it's the same. Like, there is a bit of money out there now already, but there's a social fabric of fiat, of banks, of the way we talk about it, of our education system.
Yeah, it's we have a very our whole mindset is shaped by being in a debt-based system, being based on credit. Like Bitcoin really it really changes the way you see the world. Bitcoin, sort of being the bearer asset. When you start kind of thinking with Bitcoin, you begin making sacrifices today for the future, instead of being in a cycle where you are repaying for yesterday.
Yeah, well, I think the analogy that I look at, people often talk about the internet, but for me, the Enlightenment and the Industrial Revolution are probably more salient examples of a technological innovation that was coupled with quite a paradigm shift in society, and there's a lot of flow-on effect that we saw. And so, which came first? It's hard to say, but you know, precision measurement units, steam engines, you know, automatic weaving machines and things. All of that got coupled with this like Nietzschean philosophy, you know, a re-emergence of spiritual questions, a reorganization of society into cities. Like quite a lot of change happened, and the technology was kind of there, but it was all this other stuff changed as well. And you know, the classic one that people talk about is Luddites, you know, sort of throwing the spanner in the works of these industrial machines because they didn't understand the technology, even though it was an emancipation for them. And at the same time, though it was an emancipation, you look at Das Kapital, the Communist Manifesto, that whole alienation of working class people came from this capitalist machinery that was able to suddenly get deployed and owned by a select few. And so there was a lot of social changes there, which I don't think we can predict, but we can talk about and maybe ideate on, like what are the social what are the soft changes that we can see that accompany this protocol and this technology from your perspective?
Yeah, I have to admit I'm quite naive to a lot of philosophy and history. I haven't studied history of communism or capitalism or you know, Nietzsche or anything like that. But I think Bitcoin. I suppose I don't know how much I think about it. Bitcoin for me has always consistently surprised me. I've been constantly surprised at how long it's stuck around and how it just seems to get stronger with every single challenge it overcomes. I think I kind of see it as what I like about Bitcoin is the way it does away with sort of hierarchical command and control. You know, it optimizes for the disempowered individual first. You know, anyone can make a wallet. Anyone can access that base layer. It optimizes for the individuals first, and then all the companies around that, the banks and whoever else are effectively the second priority for the network. And I think a lot of interesting things happen when you have a system of exchange and monetary value based off that. I'm still not sure what the full implications are, but I think that there's going to be a lot of interesting things happening as individuals become more empowered at the expense of existing power structures.
Yeah, I think that particular area of focus is something that I'm really interested in, because I think there's not a great deal of thought put into it, which is fine, but it's sort of, there is a revolutionary spirit in the air, which we can learn from the way that has happened in the past, and we can learn about how it works, what a revolutionary fever feels like and what it smells like, because I mean, we've seen this before, and again, you know, you come back to communism. How did that feel for these people? What did they go through? Because that was an intellectual thing. It was also a working class thing. They picked it up and they ran with it, and that was a power struggle, a hegemonic struggle. And at the same time, we're going through that here, and I'm just curious, you know, like what does it look like, and how much of this old world, the legacy fiat system, do we bring through that portal to the future? Like, you know, like is it a soft swap out? You know, do we not even see the change, or does everything change?
Yeah, I definitely. I kind of hope things are soft. I'm wary of any kind of, you know, revolutionary movement where, you know, you have people absolutely convinced that they're doing good. I think that's when, you know, a lot of the worst atrocities have happened.
Yeah. Well, that's the dogma coming through, and not being able to reason through. And I think that's why I appreciate sort of talking to you about this, and some of the others that we were catching up with, where there is a nuance to it, and it's how it's there is an image of the Bitcoiner, even though it is for everyone, and people say it's for everyone. There is certainly an image of it, and I think expanding that image to be more inclusive of what is actually happening, which is that there's these projects happening in South America, Central America, Africa, and I'd be keen to explore. I mean, jumping into your Brazil journey. So you found yourself in Italy, but how did that then end up for you being in Brazil?
It was very much just a kind of fluke. I was running out of visa days in Europe. Had done my Schengen area visa days, and then there was some other bilateral, travel arrangements that New Zealand has with other European countries, but I was still running out of countries that I could stay in. And I met someone who'd been on an exchange to Brazil, and she offered to teach me Portuguese and introduce me to people, and so I started taking lessons with her and just decided to book a flight to Brazil. That was the first reason I went there. I kind of just had this open mind to it that if I hated it, I could just continue on with my flight and have lost nothing. And if I loved it, I could extend my flight till later and stay the full 3 months there. And who knows? And ultimately, within my second week there, I decided I wanted to stay longer.
Yeah, and so coming back to this, I mean, as we opened with talking about just how vastly different it is. This continental, huge country, vastly different approach to life. What went through your mind in those first couple of weeks? Like, what really made you feel like you wanted to commit to that country?
I think it was within my first 2 weeks. I'd been invited to do a presentation on cryptocurrencies, and I was working with Binance at the time, Trust Wallet, but I was also demonstrating how to use Lightning with Blue Wallet. And at this event called Campus Party, where they had a lot of university students, I was just shocked at the huge amount of people who were interested in cryptocurrency. The amount of Brazilians who are open-minded to a new type of money, to a new way of managing money. They weren't there they didn't have these preconceptions of crypto as being something that you get rich quick, or for trading or for speculation. They wanted to know how to use it. They wanted to know how to play with it. They wanted to know what they could spend it on and things like that. And I really loved that kind of open-mindedness. And then I saw a website that was comparing the price of Bitcoin. I met these guys, Biscoin. They had this website to compare the price of Bitcoin at all these different Brazilian exchanges. And when I saw how many Brazilian exchanges there were, and I really kind of clocked like how big Brazil was, it really made me excited. It made me realize that there is a lot of people who are hungry to learn about crypto. There's also a lot of people who can really benefit from having access to, say, an income in Bitcoin that they can easily convert to their local currency and live on and save on and things like that. And so, and I suppose as well, I just really liked Brazilian culture. I liked how welcoming and embracing people were. I liked learning the Portuguese language. I liked the food and the weather. Yeah,
that's interesting. I think you contrast that with New Zealand, where honestly most people are very, in my experience as well, I would be keen to hear your thoughts, but most people are very defensive and ambivalent at the best of times, but generally are a bit skeptical and defensive.
Yeah, I think for us, like, we have less reason to see the use of Bitcoin. We're very disconnected from the daily experience of people with, who've experienced hyperinflation. The government didn't raid our Kiwi savers, back in the 90s. or no, sorry, the KiwiSaver wasn't even around, but like our pension schemes are our supers. It's not like the government has gone in and raided those. We don't deal with so much corruption. Bank fees are kind of manageable, or have been, perhaps until recently. So yeah, we are disconnected from the struggles that many people in the world go through.
The incentives aren't there.
Yeah, and also like, I don't know, I feel like people are kind of tired of hearing about crypto and crypto coins, because they've been marketed to by these ICO projects that have their incentive is to get people to buy their worthless token, basically. That type of marketing happens less in countries like Brazil. So I think we just Kiwis are very kind of, we don't realize financial privilege, we only, in general, we only see cryptocurrencies as like speculative things to gamble on, rather than things that actually add value to our lives.
Yeah, it's interesting you mention that, because again, I've been prompted to think a lot about this over the last couple of days since we first spoke. Certainly, I feel in New Zealand there's just this general lack of innovation and desire to push the limit, and it's
absolutely, we don't realize how easy it is to innovate here, and we just don't take advantage.
Like the ease of doing business, the low levels of corruption, all of that. Yet somehow everyone that I know is still taking things at a very slow pace, and there isn't this incentive or this drive to push forward with that sort of stuff.
Yep.
And I noticed the big difference, even traveling through like Thailand and that, like if there was an opportunity, someone somewhere would give it a go, and they would push it until it broke, whatever that thing might be, whether it was trying to build a business or bend the law, so so that you could try something, not waiting for regulatory clarity. If there's not a law for it yet, just give it a go until there is.
Also, I feel like not enough people realize, like, until something's declared illegal, it's legal by default, and that's the way that it should be. That we don't really get innovation by being a society that's waiting for approval for everything before we do it.
Well, it's an organic process, right? Because approval generally comes through approval, air quotes. It's like, well, you need industry experts and people to actually advise the government. So until there is a crypto industry, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so that took a few years.
I think we definitely need a lot more courage here, and just people willing to take chances. We just, so few people realize like how easy it is to do business, like you say, and to how easy it is to contact people in high ranking public office, or the owners of large companies. It's so easy to reach people here.
They're right there.
Yeah.
That's interesting, man. And I think you are, though, in a way, you're following that yourself here, though. You are continuing to build businesses. You're working on a few new projects. So what are the projects you've got on the go at the moment in New Zealand?
Yep. I would say I've recently started a software translation agency with a certified Te Reo Māori translator. So that's basically doing the same thing that I've done with some international cryptocurrency projects, and also with Easy Crypto in Brazil, taking an English-only website and app, allowing it to work in multiple languages, and then of course getting my partner Waka to do the translations. So yeah, that's not necessarily crypto related, although it would be quite cool to get a lot of Bitcoin wallets and the like translated and more accessible to Māori. You would also like to even just not for profit provide more educational resources around Bitcoin to Māori. One of our first products is Karikoha, a way to top up NZ phones with prepaid credit, and probably also selling other gift cards and vouchers. Keen to accept Bitcoin as a payment method for that, but the key idea with it still is having something that is currently English only be accessible to Māori. And I'm also working on getting an idea I first saw in Brazil, Azteco vouchers, into New Zealand. I've become their first vendor, and they do small Bitcoin vouchers for everyday use. Very popular method of acquiring consumer Bitcoin in Latin America, because you can just get such a small quantity and get it direct to your wallet. As opposed to buying, $100 plus for an exchange and then withdrawing it and, navigating that whole process. So I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. Just with Azteco, so diving into that, so that's Lightning based generally, isn't it?
Yep. So that can be main chain. Yep.
Yeah. So how do Azteco vouchers work? Where would you buy one, for example, in Brazil if you were there?
Yep. In Brazil, you can just place an order online, and then you get told, you get given a standard type of Brazilian bill payment that you can do in person at your local post office, basically. So they have one in every single, from the tiniest village to several hundred within a decent sized city. They're just physical locations where you can hand over cash to a bank teller and purchase Bitcoin. Essentially, the bank, it's not like the bank that teller or the postal employee is selling you Bitcoin. They're just routing the payment to the Azteco vendor. But the end result is that you get a gift card code that you can redeem for Bitcoin. Yeah,
no, Azteco, I first encountered that in Japan, and there's many ways of doing it, but what you can often see is places like, what you'd think of as a dairy or like a Foursquare type place, that you could top up your phone, you can buy phone cards, Apple cards, Amazon cards, and then you'd be able to buy Azteco vouchers.
Yep.
And it's all just there, easy peasy, and importantly, no KYC. It's just like an Apple Amazon card. You don't KYC yourself to buy an Amazon card.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there's no it's fully compliant with AML KYC regulations. Functions as a gift card. The vendor does not custody Bitcoin. They do not sell Bitcoin. Their customer is not purchasing Bitcoin. They are purchasing a gift card that they redeem for Bitcoin. And it's also such small quantities that you do not need to worry about money laundering and the like. At the end of the day, if someone, that first off, there are limits on how much you can buy of any gift card. But at the end of the day, the process with say selling Bitcoin for fiat or cashing out your 500k worth of Apple iTunes vouchers is going to involve the same checks, right? So it's truly making Bitcoin accessible for consumers for everyday use as money, rather than as an investment. And of course, like as an investment, that also exists as a valid option. But I feel like there's a bit of a lack of within New Zealand of people making Bitcoin easy to use instead of just being seen as an investment.
Well, that, again, come back to that, because it's interesting to hear your perspectives on Easy Crypto, because other people I've spoken to have been critical of it, and I think that they have their reasons for that as well. And what I see though is that it is easy ultimately, and the alternative to that for someone who doesn't have any Bitcoin, and you say, well, get on this non-KYC peer-to-peer platform to buy Bitcoin, it's actually a real challenge to even communicate that. Whereas if it was as easy as buying an Amazon gift card from a Foursquare or a gas station, that kind of reduces that barrier to entry for someone who's non-technical. Yeah,
and it also makes it easier for poorer people as well. If you have less money and you don't have much, if you don't have much money to spend on network fees and the like, it makes Bitcoin accessible from as little as $2, right?
Yeah.
It's much more democratic.
So you're bringing Azteco to New Zealand. What's the time frame on that in terms of people being able to buy?
I'm already selling the vouchers, but the tricky part is liquidity. like I need to, but I have just secured a loan to get that. So as of now, I haven't been charging a commission on the cards, but the standard commission is 5% total, 3% to the vendor, 2% to Azteco.
Yeah.
And that's enough for me to be able to break even on on at least the loan that I'm looking at, to get about 5k of like recurring credit for these vouchers. So that would let me like sell up to like $20,000 worth of the vouchers per month. But yeah, as of now, every time I've gone to sell the vouchers, I have to create a top up of like spare funds I have available with them, sell the vouchers, and then once I'm sold out, I'm sold out. Like I have to do another top up in order to be able to sell more vouchers. And no one wants to, give me money and then wait 3 days to get their voucher. They want it now.
So it's a bit of a, I guess, a open beta at the moment. You got people coming to you.
Definitely getting more demand than I can handle. I'm hoping to get some good, statistics, sale data that I can use to present to other vendors and sign them up in New Zealand so that they can sell it. Yeah, ultimately I'm not too interested in being a vendor myself for a long time. I'm interested in getting the local butcher and the local fruit and veggie store selling these Azteco vouchers.
Yeah, no, I think there's something really powerful there, and again, I'm impressed by that. I want to encourage you to continue working through these things, because certainly, unless you're a technical person who can learn how to, I mean, to be fair, even signing up for an exchange, I mean, that's actually a bit of a mission.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you could just say, go down to the BP or the Caltex or the Foursquare, the New World, you give the person $20 and you've got your first Bitcoin. That's like such a change, and I feel like we're going to need those sorts of things for normal people.
Yep.
Coming into the halvening and everything coming up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if it's not easy, then people will be like, well, what's the easiest thing? And if there's other things out there, whether it's some shit coins or whatever it is, if it's easier, they don't know it because they haven't done the work to necessarily understand Bitcoin deeply. And ultimately, not everyone will be able to. Not everyone understands how the internet works. Not everyone knows how a computer works. You need to kind of present the options and make it easy. And when I say easy, it needs to be tap and go, cash over the counter sort of level.
Mm-hmm. What do people not like about Easy Crypto?
I think there's this issue that there's a lot of shit coins on there, and it is a casino of, do I buy Bitcoin or do I buy Dogecoin?
Yeah.
Is one criticism. Another criticism would be some of the fees, which, look, it's understandable, but you've got minimum buys, you've got fees associated with that, and yet the fees aren't, the profits that are being made aren't being used to further the platform, for example, enabling Lightning withdrawals or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think more distantly, there are issues that other exchanges have been muscled out of the market, yet somehow Easy Crypto has been anointed to be functional in New Zealand. I mean, you work there, you've got maybe a different perspective, perhaps.
Yeah. I can definitely say there's no banking cartel thing going on where Easy Crypto's been anointed. I think it's very difficult to get a good relationship with the banks. Easy Crypto has been lucky enough to, as I think Janine has done a fantastic job at, being very responsive to banks, being very responsive to the police, just gaining a lot of trust from, the very risk averse banking sector in NZ. But this hasn't been a thing where it's been deliberate, anti-competitive moves or anything like that. I do think that Easy Crypto wants to enable things like Lightning, but the main way that their business model works now is that they the coins that they purchase are delivered straight from the exchanges. So until likes of well, Binance recently did Lightning withdrawal, but not very good. But until the likes of Binance and Bittrex and whoever else enable these withdrawal methods, Easy Crypto kind of has its hands tied.
So are you saying Easy Crypto has an arrangement where they're not in custody of the coins that they're selling, they're simply brokering, is that right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yep, they've always been a broker.
Okay, so that would mean
for Bitcoin, Bitcoin's probably the only difference. Easy Crypto, I think recently started charging for on-chain withdrawals of Bitcoin, but yeah, for a long time was covering the fees and ran a Bitcoin wallet that they held Bitcoin and paid out people from, but every other altcoin was done directly from the exchanges.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, again, these are criticisms that I've heard from different people, and it's interesting to hear your perspective. I think it is a lot easier having had a tutu with other exchanges, and there's a few out there that are pretty atrocious in terms of actually letting you get your funds into self-custody. I think, a positive for Easy Crypto is that that's the only way to do it. They don't custody any funds on behalf of the customer. So in that sense, that's a step closer towards a better solution.
I'd say that the intentions are pure. Like any business, they're going to face different. They're not always going to live up to the Bitcoiners standard, right? But they're still providing self-custodial sats at usually New Zealand's best prices, and they've I think Easy Crypto's done pretty well when, for example, when the IRD asked for information on all the users, including like the users who had they had no suspicion of them doing any tax evasion or whatever. Easy Crypto tried to fight that, and then when it turned out that they could not fight that, they made it very public and told all the users, this is the data that's been shared, this is where you can check it. And so I think Easy Crypto has done pretty good at being transparent, and but yes, selling altcoins, and it has probably annoyed some Bitcoiners, like marketing campaigns where like, oh, I see you've been buying Bitcoin 5 times. Have you considered buying this, diversifying your portfolio? That's not a ideal way to win a Bitcoiner's favor.
Yeah, I think that's where the maximalist argument comes in, that if these are the people who are the ones that the government is tapping to give advice and to provide insight, and Bitcoin is this sort of footnote on their website that they're not really,
it's the first thing that they sell. It's the default option. It's not exactly a footnote, but
on the new resources, they talk about what is a cryptocurrency, and it's very much crypto, not Bitcoin. Though you are right, the default option is Bitcoin. It's sort of halfway in between almost.
Yeah.
But that's perhaps, a reflection of the market. If the market's demanding these shit coins, someone's got to step up and provide them, right? And is that an incentive that's not actually the problem of the exchange, to say we're going to put an ideological line in the sand? Like, if there's money to be made, are they not enabled to just make it?
Yeah. Yeah. At the least, I've been fairly happy as both a customer and later, partner and employee of Easy Crypto. But it would be nice to see more competition in the New Zealand market. And Easy Crypto in general are usually very, very open and supportive of competition as well. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And I think, as I said, perhaps this is where we need to think about, well, what are the incentives? Because if at a higher level some of these securities and altcoin tokens become unaccessible in New Zealand due to regulatory change, suddenly there won't be a requirement to be able to buy them, and so they will just disappear on their own. And it's not up to an individual exchange to necessarily make that judgment call. If people want to buy shitcoins, this is a market, we're going to respond to the customer need. And it almost comes back on the Bitcoiners to educate people.
Yeah, and at the end of the day too, the increased profits from selling altcoins can be used to make Bitcoin cheaper as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, all good. Sweet, man. We covered a lot of different things. I feel like we wound around your travels, some of your work, impressive portfolio of resume of work that you've undertaken as a young man. But you've got a lot more ahead of you, and you're off to Brazil in a couple of weeks.
A couple of days, actually. 6 days. Yep.
Nice. And then, but you will be back.
Yep. 6 weeks. Yep.
Yeah. And you've got any other speculation, ideas, visions for the future that you want to share at this moment?
About Bitcoin, about New Zealand?
About anything, man.
Yeah, I don't know. We're in a interesting time. I don't know. I feel like just in general, like I would suggest to most like if Kiwis are out here like listening to this and feeling like kind of trapped in a world that's just getting more and more expensive, inflation, this constant feeling of like running as hard as you can to stay still, I'd suggest like traveling to maybe not Brazil, but like countries with a lower cost of living. There's like a lot of there's a lot outside of New Zealand. There's a lot better, if you're interested in Bitcoin, there's a lot better like Bitcoin adoption outside New Zealand as well. I feel like it can be kind of easier to get into a bit of like a doomer mindset, just sticking around in New Zealand. But yeah, there's like a lot of hope and optimism outside of here, I reckon. And so I would just kind of, if I had to say like anything, it's not exactly a prediction for the future, actually. It's more of like a kind of recommendation. But I feel like if I was like talking to myself listening to this podcast and I had never really been outside of New Zealand, I would recommend to
I would echo those comments. I think I was lucky. I managed to get out a couple of months ago for the first time in like 3 years, and it was just life-changing. And there we still have this, I think we haven't quite shaken off the dust of COVID lockdowns and everything. We got broken roads, broken cities, crimes on the rise, all of these negative things, which if you let it...
It's very destabilizing if you've just only grown up here.
Yeah, it can be a bit shocking, but, get out of here and like we're in the middle of winter, it's hideous grey weather, cold southerlies, but it's like, man, get on an airplane. And that's the thing, we're an island in the South Pacific, but if you get out, you go to a tropical place, go somewhere that's warm, so warm that you just go and see the people smiling, go to the markets, try and spend some Bitcoin, see just the challenges they face, and you can almost bring it back to being a bit more humble about it as well. Like New Zealand has the bones to build a solid, beautiful country, but we need to do the proof of work here.
Yep.
We went to proof of stake for a little bit, and it isn't working out. We got to go back to proof of work, and that's people like yourself who are building stuff here, making shit happen, and it's like kapai to that, and I want to see more of that, man. So thanks for coming in, James.
Sharing, thanks for bringing me in.
Sharing your story.
It's been great to hang out in person, and I really like what you're doing with this podcast.
Thank you, mate. All right, see you later.
Cool.
Thank you for listening. I do hope you enjoyed the show and hearing James's story. I am Cody Allingham, and that was The Transformation of Value. If you'd like to get in touch, please send me an email at hello@thetransformationofvalue.com, and I will get back to you.